Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I'm doing a series book review, but a little bit differently for this channel. I am reading the Antonia Hodgson Thomas Hawkins series, which is a 4-book series. I have already read and reviewed book 1, that link is above me now to that, and I'm currently reading The Last Confession of Thomas Hawkins, which is book 2 of this series. And as you see, I've already made quite a dent in it. I'm almost halfway through. I have done series reviews before, but I thought, why not try this one a bit like a vlog? So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts as I read this series. No matter how long that takes, I do tend to read a book in between books when I'm reading a series. So I'm going to take you guys along with me. As I said, I have already started this. I'm almost halfway through and I've really got into it now. I've just got up to part 3. It's split into different parts, and like the first one, it is a murder mystery with fantastic characterization. You follow Thomas Hawkins and Kitty from the first book, and it just gives Plunkett and McLean vibes. If you haven't seen that, I'll pop a picture next to me now of that film. It's a fantastic film if you haven't seen it, and that's just the vibes I got. I remember that I really wanted to read this one because I lent The Devil and Marshalsea to my mum when she visited this year, and she absolutely loved it and got the same vibe. So I was like, well, I need to read this one soon because she'll want to borrow it as well. And then now I'm reading this one. I'm like, well, I need to read the next 2, which I don't own yet. And if you guys have seen my TBR vlog, yeah, more books have come into my home since that vlog. I'm addicted to books, okay? But I am going to get the next 2 of these because it's awesome. Editor Robin here, and I just realised I didn't tell you guys the blurb for The Last Confession of Thomas Hawkins, so here's the blurb. London, 1728. A young, well-dressed man is driven through streets of jeering onlookers to the gallows at Tyburn. They call him a murderer, but Tom Hawkins is innocent, and somehow he has to prove it before the rope squeezes the life out of him. It is, of course, all his own fault. He was happy settling down with Kitty Sparks. He should never have told the most dangerous criminal in London that he was bored and looking for adventure. He should never have offered to help the King's mistress, and most of all, he should never have trusted the witty, calculating Queen Caroline. She has promised him a royal pardon if he holds his tongue, but then again, there is nothing more silent than a hanged man. I'm not going to do as many quotes as I would normally do on my book reviews, but I have saved a few from here which I thought you guys might enjoy, and just shows how fantastic the writing is. The first one is on page 30. Sam was reading a book of anatomy, black curls fallen across his face. His gaze slid briefly to mine, then dropped back down to an illustration of the heart, labelled in close detail. I tapped the page. So, you're learning the mysteries of the human heart. Ventricles. A month ago I would have been perplexed by this response, but I had learned to form sentences around the odd word he disdained to expel into the air. In this case, no sir, I am not studying the mysteries of the human heart, but its mechanics, including, for example, ventricles. A word I will now say out loud for my own unfathomable amusement. My lips curved into a faint smile. How much character do you get of Sam in that one bit? It's fantastic. We then have page 73. And remember what I taught you about good conversation. He looked at me in the mirror. Sentences. Yes, indeed, sentences, I paused. That wasn't one, for example. Again, that is Sam talking to Thomas, and you can just really see their relationship together, and I love Sam. He's just such a sweet character. He's a 14-year-old boy with the cynicism of like a 60-year-old guy. Page 101. Befriend him. I thought of Howard tearing at my throat, snarling in fury. Upon reflection, perhaps murdering him was preferable. I love Thomas. He's been given a task from the Queen. The plot thickens. I mean, at this point, we've got the murder from the last book at the end hanging over their heads. We've now got a mistress to the king who needs Thomas Hawkins' help. The plot is just going and going. Page 112. You were the thief. Didn't steal nothing. Didn't steal anything, I corrected before I could stop myself. Yes, of course, that was the boy's great crime in all this, his use of double negatives. This made me laugh because I use double negatives all the time and it winds Matt up a lot. Let's just say a lot. So yeah. Page 153. He confuses a disreputable life with a wicked one. They are not precisely the same. And finally, page 168. No, can you not see, Tom? Judith with the blade, taking revenge upon her father at last. All those years playing the dutiful, obedient daughter, locked away in her room like a nun. And not one of your French nuns, Tom. Stop drifting. Again, Antonia Hodgson has really good characterization and the dialogue is superb and natural and so sarky, and you can just really believe in these people and believe in their relationships together as well, which I really love that. So we now have in this book a past murder that could get them in trouble, a current murder that Tom Hawkins has now been assigned to find the culprit, and we have Mrs. Hawson, who needs Thomas Hawkins' protection or involvement to get rid of the husband. So there's 3 stories in one in this book, and currently I have no idea who did the murder, because it could be any of the 3 children in the house, but also there's a hidden door. It could still be Sam, it could be Alice the maid. I mean, it could technically be Kitty. Wouldn't that be a bit of a turn in there? So I really can't tell who did this murder, but I'm up to part 3. I want to keep reading. I'm going to read some more of this tonight because I am addicted now. We're back for another check-in on Antonia Hodgson's The Confession of Thomas Hawkins. I have just over 100 pages left, so doing pretty well. I didn't get to read last night because I was at an open mic night, but tonight I'm hoping to read a big chunk of this. I was reading on my lunch break today and it'd be kicking off. I have ordered the next 2 in the series just today from World of Books, which is a massive online secondhand bookshop. So I recommend if you're looking for secondhand books and you can't find them in your local secondhand shop, that's a good place to get them. I've ordered the next 2, which I'm really excited about. So they're ordered. I have been continuing to read this, nearly 100 pages left to go. I have got a quote, page 213. Mr. Hawkins, if I'd wanted to kill her, that is not a happy way to begin a sentence, Sam. Why would she feel safer washing the floor? I've no idea, I sighed, dipping my quill, but we have a clean house for it, so thanks for that. But, Sam looked bewildered. It would be easier with the mop and bucket. I could use them to wash the blood after, and I fixed him with a look. There's no reason to it, he muttered and slunk up to his room. I just love Sam. You can totally see his thought process there, because why would Alice think that staying up and cleaning the house would make her safe from Sam, who she thinks is the murderer, when, as he says, you can just use that to clean it up? Interesting. And then I have another quote, which is page 215. It's Alice is cleaning the cellar. She says we need rat traps or a cat. I just want to say, I'm on Team Cat for that. They should get a cat. They should definitely get a cat. I'm going to go now. I have to finish the fire pit for its yearly scrape and revarnish. I have exercise, dinner, and then I'm going to read more of this book. finished The Last Confession of Thomas Hawkins by Antonia Hodgson this morning, which is book 2 of the Thomas Hawkins series. As you'll have seen in my last update, I have ordered the next 2 books in this series. They haven't arrived yet, but also, even though I'm reading this series, I do tend to leave a gap in between. So I actually have 2 books that I have to read before I can read the next one of these when they arrive. And those 2 books are The Truth by Terry Pratchett, because as you know, I'm on a Discworld journey, so I must continue that journey. I generally try to read one of these a month where possible. And then also, you can see Matt's busy reading this. I need to read Apples in the Dark by John Alex Taylor. This is our book club read for this month. But Matt's busy reading this one, and I don't want to start this one if I need to finish this one first. So, long-winded way to say, I'm actually going to start reading The 6 Who Came to Dinner by Anne Youngson. This is a set of 6 short stories. So I'm going to start this one whilst Matt finishes this one, so that if he finishes this one, I can stop this because it's short stories, so I can stop to read this one. Or because it's only 6 short stories, I might finish this before he finishes this. But anyway, long-winded, I have finished Antonia Hodgson. I'm waiting for the next 2 to arrive. In between this one and the 3rd one, I'm going to be reading The 6 Who Came to Dinner by Anne Youngson, Apples in the Dark by John Alex Taylor, and I'm going to be reading The Truth by Terry Pratchett. But my thoughts and feelings on book 2, I'm going to try to do this as spoiler-free as possible. I loved this book like I love The Devil in the Marshalsea. For its style, I gave it 5 stars. I was going to give it 4, but I upped it to 5 because I couldn't find anything wrong with it. And it's not a genre I read that often. It is a mystery thriller and I adored it. It's a really good holiday read. I mean, the series is just a good holiday series. Like, I read this within 4 days or something. It's a really good read, really fast-paced, epic, funny. I loved how in The Devil in the Marshalsea, Fleet, who he meets in the Marshalsea, yells out the window about his beautiful calves. And I loved in this, that theme continues and there are random comments about Tom Hawkins' legs, which I just love that connection. The characters are fantastic. As you'll know from my last update, oh my god, Sam, I'm not going to tell you who did it. It was so good. Tom Hawkins had 5 main suspects. We have Sam, who lives with Tom Hawkins and Kitty, Alice, the housemaid, we have Ned Weaver, who is the apprentice of the deceased, and we have Judith and Stephen, who are the deceased's children. So 5 suspects, and honestly, I think I wrote off 3 of the suspects quite quickly, but the other 2, ooh, it was hard choosing between them. I really enjoyed how he came to the conclusion of who it was. And another thing this book does is it's split into 6 parts. I believe Antonia Hodgson did that to skip over the bits that you don't need. It just skips over Thomas Hawkins recovering from their various beatings and things like that. So I liked how we skip forward in time so that the pace keeps moving, it never slows down, the story just keeps going, the plot keeps developing. I also like the mixed media element in this book because you have from Tom Hawkins. This is going to sound weird because if you aren't new to my channel, you'll know I have a video onto prologue or not to prologue. That link is above me now. And I have a thing generally against prologues. So you'll be surprised that each part in this kind of starts with a prologue and I didn't mind it. It was a shock to me too. But each part kind of starts with prologue. So you have it in italics and that is a future Tom Hawkins talking about their current predicament. You then go into the present Tom Hawkins who's trying to work out who the murderer is, whilst in a load of other deep shit as well. But then you also have at one point a pamphlet media as well, which goes into a different type of font for the writing. And I just really like that mixed up media of that. It really brings you in to the room, and also that pamphlet is absolutely hilarious and I love how the characters come out even in that short sections. Yeah, 5-star read. I would highly recommend this and I'm really looking forward to the next 2 books in the series arriving. I will update you guys when they do. I'm excited to read the next ones. I'll be back when the next 2 arrive. We've had post. If you guys haven't seen, I did a TBR vlog, that link is above me now, and yes, I bought more books than I intended to. In my defense, I bought these books from World of Books, which is a secondhand online bookshop, and they may have had an offer on of buy 3 get 1 free. So yeah, I got 4 books, but most importantly I got the next 2 in the Antonia Hodgson Thomas Hawkins series, and I didn't realise I got these in hardback. So we have a Death at Fountains Abbey by Antonia Hodgson. This is book 3 in the Thomas Hawkins series, so this is the one I will read next in this vlog, and I believe this was a library copy. Look at the stamps. I don't think libraries use stamps much anymore, but it is in this plastic film to protect the sleeve. When I read hardbacks, I tend to remove the sleeve and just have what's underneath, so I could remove this plastic, but this is a second-hand book, but as you can see, it looks absolutely fine. And I also got the 4th book in the Thomas Hawkins series, which is this one here, The Silver Collar by Antonia Hodgson. This is the 4th and I believe the final book of this series. This is what we will be ending this reading vlog on. And I mean, it's gone proper murder mystery now. It's got blood on the cover. And again, accidentally hardback, but perfect condition. I'm so excited. I have the next 2 books so we can continue on with the story. Yeah! I'm excited for this because the last book, I enjoyed it so much. And then, of course, I'll show you guys the other 2 books that I got because it was in 3 for 4. I had to get 4 books. We got Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Masuki Toshimura. This is a Japanese translated fiction. You see a gorgeous cover there. Again, second-hand, you can tell because in the corner here, we've got a little bit of bent over there, but it's still in really good condition. This has been on my to-buy list for a while, but I promised myself I'm not going to buy it until I finish all my Japanese literature books I already have. Yeah, that promise lasted a long time. And then the 4th book that I got is Alan Campbell's Sea of Ghosts. Now, Alan Campbell, me and Matt have read a trilogy by them, and it was fantastic. I'll pop a picture of the trilogy up here. It was The City of Chains or something like that, and when I tell you this book went from standard to extreme, it was a very normal fantasy read, and then by the end of the last book you're like, what? Fantastic writing. When it was in the 4 for 3, I asked Matt are there any books that he wanted, and he looked up if Alan Campbell had any more books, and they do. They have 2 books out in this series. Again, I didn't realise this was in hardback, so this is the first of that new series, and I hope it's just as crazy as the City of Chains book. And that is my book haul. As you guys know from my last update, I first must finished 3 books, one of which I am almost halfway through. This is the 6 Who Came to Dinner. I'm halfway through this one, and one of the other ones is Apple in the Dark, which Matt finished this morning, so I can start this one or finish this one and then read this one, we'll see, followed by Pratchett, and then we'll be on to this one. So I'll see you guys when I start A Death at Fountains Abbey. Hi everyone, it's been a little while, but I have finished the 3 books I had to read before I could read the 3rd Antonia Hodgson book in the Thomas Hawkins series. So I thought I'd do just a super quick sum up of the 3 books that I read. If you want to see the full book reviews on those, I'll pop a link to those above me now. Some will be out by the time this video comes out and some may not be. But the first one that I read was The 6 Who Came to Dinner by Anne Youngson. This one is 6 short stories, generally dealing with the morals of people. And I really enjoyed 2 stories in it. The rest I wasn't too keen on, but it is very well written. I am going to lend this one to my mum, but I won't want it back. But I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. The second book I read in between was Apples in the Dark by John Alex Taylor. This one is a local author here in Wales, and it was the book club read for the book club that I'm in with Owen, who works at Bookish. And this book was really interesting. It's about mental disabilities, it's about a found family, it's about the struggles of life, and it's very great representation. For me, I found that it's about 400 pages long, and for me, that was too long for the subjects that it was covering. It sort of was labouring a little bit, but each bit was very good, so I don't know what you could say wasn't needed in it. If you want to see the full review, I'd say that link is above me now, but I gave this 3 out of 5 stars also. And the final one was continuing on my Discworld journey with The Truth by Terry Pratchett. This is the 25th Discworld book. If you are new to my channel, I have a playlist of the Discworld series. I'm reading the Discworld in order. There's a link above to that now. This one I really enjoyed. It was reminiscent of soul music and moving pictures by Terry Pratchett, in that this one is about the creation of the printing press, so about a newspaper called The Times. It was a step up from the previous two because, like all Pratchett books, he gradually gets better and better. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And that means we can now read the third Antonia Hodgson book, which is A Death at Fountains Abbey by Antonia Hodgson. This is the third Thomas Hawkins book. I have already started to read this morning. As you can see, I've read the prologue and the first chapter. Tell you one thing first though, I got this book secondhand, and it is a old library book from Derby City Council, which fills me with joy. But what doesn't fill me with joy is look. It looks like this is a first edition and they stuck a sticker on it. Ah! And I can't get it off. I just wanted to know what year this book actually came out. But let me read you guys the blurb of the third book. Late spring 1728, and Thomas Hawkins has left London for the wild beauty of Yorkshire. Forced on a mission he can't refuse. John Aislabie, no idea how to pronounce this, one of the wealthiest men in England, has been threatened with murder. Blackmailed into investigating, Tom must hunt down those responsible or lose the woman he loves forever. Since Aislabie is widely regarded as the architect of the greatest financial swindle ever seen, there is no shortage of suspects. Far from the ragged comforts of home, Tom and his ward, Sam Fleet, enter a world of elegant surfaces and hidden danger. The great estate is haunted by family secrets and simmering unease. Someone is determined to punish John Aislabie and anyone who stands in their way. As the violence escalates and shocking truths are revealed, Tom is dragged inexorably towards the darkest night of his life. Inspired by real characters, events and settings, A Death at Fountains Abbey is a gripping standalone historical thriller. It also continues the story that began with the award-winning The Devil in the Marshalsea and The Last Confession of Thomas Hawkins. This is the third book of the Thomas Hawkins series, but as it says, you can read these all alone. So at the end of the confessions, Thomas Hawkins is sent away and Kitty and Sam are in the carriage too. Now when I first started reading this, I stupidly and naively thought that Antonia Hodgson had forgot about them. She hadn't. Kitty and him argued on the way up. It describes that. So if you don't know the backstory of Kitty, it doesn't matter too much, she's not there. And Sam is there, but it describes who he is in a little detail anyway, so you can read it as a standalone if you want to. But I'm enjoying it so far. It's got so many good reviews on the back, like the others, the Sunday Times, intelligent and engrossing reading, Sunday Express, Tom Hawkins, the most engaging rake to appear in a historical novel since George MacDonald Fraser's Flashman, The Times, a lively plot, an engaging hero, and a vividly recreated city with all its stench and pleasures great fun. And on the front we have Independent on Sunday, immaculate research, rip-roaring pace. So I'm excited to read this. I've had 2 3-star reads and 1 4-star read before this one, so I'm really hoping for a 5-star again, like Antonia Hodgson's previous 2 books. I am dog sitting at the moment, so as I'm reading this, you may see a dog every so often because I'm looking after him for 2 weeks. Excited to take you guys along as we read this one, and I'll maybe take you guys on a dog walk or 2. Good afternoon. I thought I'd drop in for an update. I've got little Pip with me, cleaning themselves on the foot puff, which he's decided is his new bed. But I'm currently up to chapter 26. You definitely don't have to have read the first 2 because it does recap for you, but I have a few things I wanted to discuss. One was on page 36, which was Thomas Hawkins' shock of a woman who is full astride her horse, that is to say, with one leg upon one side of the beast and the other leg upon the opposing side. Naturally, this extraordinary position would have been impossible in a gown. Instead, she wore a pair of close-tailored drawers stitched in a heavy woolen cloth. No doubt this remarkable garment made for a comfortable ride, but it also meant that, from the waist downwards, Mrs. Eselby's shape was perfectly transparent. Ooh, I just find that so funny. Of the time period, that seeing the shape of a woman's legs was like a no. It just amused me. And the second quote I want to share with you guys is page 66. Half-hanged Hawkins, Simpson barked out a laugh. Heard you was coming. Bloody hell, hanged at Tyburn. How's your neck, sir? Still stretched? I drew back. I've no wish to speak of it. If wishes were fucks, the world would be full of bastards, he replied with a shrug. How good is that quote? I just found those hilarious. But yeah, we're up to chapter 6, just under 100 pages, and loving it so far. It should be a good read. Good evening, so I am about halfway through this book now, and it be getting good. Oh dear, Mr. Gattaker said, reading the note. What ill news? Mrs. Slingsby has died. A patient? A rich one. I thought she had another £10 worth of bills in her at least. What a tragedy. Great doctor. Metcalf, who is a gentleman who lives in the house that Hawkins is in, thinks he's being poisoned. Hawkins has given the poison to Mr. Gattaker, the physician. He said it has kept him asleep these past 3 days. Could you examine the contents for me, sir? Delighted. I'll try it on one of the little Gattakers. Pray don't be alarmed, Mrs. Hawkins, he grinned. I've got 8 or 10 of them at home. We won't run out. Another example of that doctor being just fantastic. I am worried though. In here, this better not happen, Tom and Kitty, because Kitty has arrived now, were talking about Sam, and he heard them. No, I love Sam. I know. Okay, I know in the second book he murdered someone and that he's only 14. But redemption for him, please. I love him. He's so cool. He's just funny. And I just want him to have a redemption story. I really want him to actually, get out of the underground life and get to be a doctor like he wants to be. And it makes me sad that Tom and Kitty have given up. And I understand he's a murderer. I understand. But it still made me sad. But yeah, I am about halfway through now. I'm really enjoying it. I couldn't tell you who's done it yet. Really couldn't, which is great. There is one thing Antonia Hodgson in this book does sometimes for me repeat themselves in terms of repeating what happened in The Devil in the Marshalsea and in the Confessions of Thomas Hawkins. Now, I did say when I read the blurb for this that you don't have to read these books in order. You could read this one as a standalone, which is also how it's marketed. So because it's marketed that way, obviously Antonia Hodgson has to remind you of what happened in the previous books to an extent, but sometimes it's being repeated, partly because I'm reading these in quick succession. It's a little bit frustrating to reread all the time, but I'm going to sit and read tonight. When you read a mystery, when you hit that halfway point, that's kind of it. You're stuck. So I'm going to read, probably for the rest of the night now, and finish this in the next few days. I still don't know who did it. I still don't know. I finished the third Antonia Hodgson book, which is A Death at Fountains Abbey. This is the third book in the Thomas Hawkins series. It was really good. I didn't love it as much as The Devil in the Marshalsea and the second one, which is The Last Confession of Thomas Hawkins. This one could not put it down by the halfway through point. The start felt a little bit slow for me, but it was so good. I was terrified for a certain character who is one of my favourites, which I won't tell you too much, because obviously you might want to read this, but oh yeah, they went after one of my favourite characters. But it was really good. I guessed one person involved in the murder mystery in this, but that's a lot more complex than you think. No! It was good. It was very, very good. So I finished this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars from me. Really good. Highly recommend. Which means we have 1 book left of this Antonia Hodgson reading vlog, and that is the 4th Thomas Hawkins book, which is the Silver Collar. This came out in 2020, so maybe there'll be another one. Who knows? This is again a second-hand edition, and it's a first edition, which I wasn't expecting, and unlike the last one, this one's not from a library. It's in pristine condition. But me being me, I'm not going to read that one immediately because, as I've already said previously, I always tend to break up series and read a book in between. So before I can read the final Thomas Hawkins book, I will be reading Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. If you're not new to my channel, you may have seen, I believe in January, when I did my New Year book tag, that link's above me now. This is a book I've had on my shelf since high school and I haven't read it, and I adored the movie. So I've decided it needs to be done. I told myself at the start of this year that if I don't read this book this year, then it's going. We're doing it. We're plunging in. I'll be reading this one, so I'm going to read the Memoirs of a Geisha. I will next update you when I finish that, and we are going to start The Silver Collar by Antonia Hodgson. I'll read you guys the blurb then. So excited to read more Thomas Hawkins. I completely forgot to mention I have a quote for you guys from the 3rd book near the end. The threat lies out there, somewhere in the dark woods. He laughs softly, thinking of all the men hunting for him while he waits patiently. This just really reminded me of The Truth by Terry Pratchett, where it talks about how the threat is always out there and at the point of a sword, not inside with the normal people. It just reminded me of that. That's literally the only reason for that quote. Pratchett fans, you've got me, you get why, but yeah, it just reminded me of The Truth by Terry Pratchett. If you haven't seen my review on that, the link's above me now. Good morning, everyone. So I have finished Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Like the previous books that I read in between the Antonia Hodgson books, I'm not going to fully review this one for you guys, but I will pop a link to my review video of this book above. I'm struggling to review this one. It's both interesting and highly problematic all at the same time, which is intriguing. I'm really not too sure what I should give it. At the minute I'm erring on 3 stars, so we'll see. It's quite slow paced. Once it stopped being like the film, it was more interesting. You can tell I'm struggling, so I'm gonna say 3 stars at the moment. You can see in my book review above if I stuck to that review, but Memoirs of a Geisha, Arthur Golden, 3 stars. But now it means we get to complete my Antonia Hodgson journey with book 4 of the Thomas Hawkins series, which is The Silver Collar. I've already started reading it, as you can see. I'm almost up to part 2 of it already, which happens within the first 50 pages because, as you guys know, it's a thriller. It's going to be a mystery novel and it's going to be fast paced. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it already. I just started reading it this morning. I'll read you guys the blurb for this one. Before I read you guys the blurb, the music you can hear right now is actually from my band Wooden Elephant's new double single EP, and we have t-shirt merch again. It's been a while, so this is a loose fitting. It's shorter at the front and slightly longer at the back, so it's good for a French tuck. And you can also get a yellower version, which is the male t-shirt. I'm not saying you have to be male or female to wear either of these, wear whichever one you want. It's just how they separate them on the website. But the website is Wooden Elephant's TeeMill. I'll put a link below to that if you guys are interested in the t-shirt. I'll also put a link below to the new double single, which is called Arito, if you're interested to hear that. But let's read you guys the blurb from the 4th Thomas Hawkins book. Autumn 1728. Life is good for Thomas Hawkins and Kitty Sparks. The Cocked Pistol, Kitty's wickedly disreputable bookshop, is a roaring success. Tom's celebrity as half-hanged Hawkins, the man who survived the gallows, is also proven useful. Their happiness is short-lived. When Tom is set upon by a street gang, he discovers there's a price on his head. Who on earth could want him dead, and why? With the help of his ward, Sam Fleet, and Sam's underworld connections, Tom's investigation leads to a fine house on Jermyn Street, the elegant, enigmatic Lady Van Hook, and an escaped slave by the name of Jeremiah Patience. But for Tom and Kitty, discovering the truth is only the beginning of the nightmare. A powerful, deeply immersive thriller, The Silver Collar is both a celebration of love and friendship and a terrifying exploration of evil. Ooh, it sounds so good, as all of Antonia Hodgson's books sound. And as I said, I've nearly finished part 1 just this morning. When I finish that, I'll give you guys an update. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Good morning, everyone. I'm only on to day 2 of reading this book, and I'm already 100 pages into a 308-page book, so it's going well. It's split into 7 parts, which seems like quite a lot of parts, but I am loving it so far. In part 1, we find out that someone is trying to kill Thomas Hawkins, of course, because who isn't trying to kill Thomas Hawkins generally in these books? I have a couple of quotes from part 1 of this book to share with you guys. The first was on page 26. This is in a section where Thomas Hawkins is talking about describing someone. So he describes Sam, who you know is one of my favourite characters in this book, as a short, lean, olive-skinned boy with a great mass of black curls and unnerving black eyes that can strip a man bare to his very soul. Or if I were to describe myself, I would mention my legs, specifically my calves, which are very good. There are plenty of fellows who stuff pads under their stockings in the vain hope of achieving such an admirable shape. I just love how Thomas Hawkins' legs are something that Samuel Fleet yells across the yard about in The Devil in the Marshalsea, which is the first Antonia Hodgson's book. So I love that in all of the books, his calves or his legs are always mentioned. Page 46 and 47. So on page 46, I stepped on the landing, listening for voices, and trod on the broken floorboard. It gave a loud, wounded moan, then cracked in two. "Damn it," I shouted as a splinter pierced my bare foot. Then, on the next page, "I told you," Kitty hissed in my back, 1,000 times to mend that floorboard. I wrote it in capitals. Now, previous to this, Kitty leaves notes around the house, and the aggression with the capitals is just a beautiful thing to behold. Now, at the door is Gabriella Fleet, which is Sam Fleet's mum, and Thomas Hawkins has a cane sword, so a sword that's disguised as a cane, so he waggles it at the door before opening it to let Gabriella know that he has got a weapon, because she always carries a dagger, which looks like a brooch, in between her breasts, and Gabriella says, "Yes, very good, very big, Thomas." I just love how she doesn't care that he has a blade. It's not a problem to her. We then move on to part 2. Now in part 2, we find out what's going on. I will mention, so at the end of part 1, we have a section in italics, and I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it, because it kind of gives a lot away, but I also don't quite know how it would work without the italics. It goes back to the prologue, which also kind of tells you about the prologue. I actually didn't mind, but I feel to some extent that the italics at the end of part 1 are a little bit telling. It basically tells us who is after Hawkins instead of Hawkins working it out, which might be more fun as this is a mystery thriller for us to work that out, the same as Thomas Hawkins, but I don't mind too much. In part 2, we find out a lot more details, and I have 2 quotes from this. Page 78, "Never gives them nothing. I had spoken to Sam before about double negatives, but now was not the time to repeat the lecture." This might not seem like much to you guys, but Matt tells me off all the time for speaking in double negatives. Another reason why I like Sam. And finally, page 93. "Kitty was much the superior sulker. I always forgot halfway through and started chatting gaily about something or other, at which point she would twist one half of her face up in an enraging smirk, because I had spoken first, while she was demonstrably seething in wounded silence and had thus won. I just love how these two are arguing. The way Antonia Hodgson describes their relationship is so relatable, of that kind of whoever breaks first has lost the argument, even though the argument hasn't continued because you're both just sulking. I'm now up to part 3 out of 7, which is called The Cage. It's pure thriller. I can't stop reading it. As I said, I'm already on page 105 now, and I started it yesterday. I'm basically reading at least a section a day because it's just so easy to read and unputdownable. I'm really hoping this one's going to be a 5 stars again, just like The Devil in the Marshalsea was. Hey everyone, welcome to our kitchen. Just dropping in with a update on the Silver Collar by Antonia Hodgson. I am about 40 pages to the end now. I'm in part 7, which if you remember from the start of reading this book, it's split into 7 parts. I am going to finish this today. It's inevitable at this point. It will be finished. I had to stop myself continuing to read this morning because I had some filming to do, and I know, you know when you're in the last bit of a book, you can't stop reading until you finish, and I'm about to enter that, so I had to make sure I got the stuff I needed to do done before I got into the I'm not moving until this book is finished. So I'm gonna finish that after lunch today. It's gonna happen. But I thought I'd give you guys an update before we get to that point, because I have a few quotes I want to share with you guys, and also, empty page, I'm gonna start making the prompts for a TBR jar. I would like to, for 2025, do a quarterly TBR jar. Now I know a lot of other channels do monthly TBRs and they read a lot of books. Now I've been reading really fast for me in 2024, but I am not going to read that fast. So, and I'm a mood reader, so I like to change up a bit what I'm reading. There's certain books I will always read as well. Let's go through the quotes from this book first, from where we're up to for now, and then I'll talk about this TBR jar. So I just have 4 for you guys. On page 134, Hawkins meets Jeremiah, who is an escaped slave. Now this book goes into slavery, which I thought was represented quite well. Maybe not brutal enough for what it was, but Jeremiah is an escaped slave. He's got to England, but he can't speak, and I thought the representation was done really well here. So on page 134, after a short struggle, he gave up the fight and pulled out a letter addressed to me. The paper was of poor quality, but the hand was elegant and firm. Sir, I wish that I could speak these words to you directly, but alas, my thoughts do not transfer easily to my tongue when I am among strangers. I thought it was really good representation because he can speak. Jeremiah's been so traumatized that he's developed a stutter. He really struggles to get his words out, and he was punished for this routinely, so obviously it got worse and worse. And there is a character arc with Jeremiah, which I really liked, but I just like this representation of just being, due to trauma, unable to get these thoughts out. On page 180, the bills aren't in her name, he said, and grinned. I thought for a second, Gonson? Please God. Sam nodded, still grinning. Gonson. That is the precise noise I made, high-pitched and gloating. I had never made such a sound before in my life. One assumes it's only found in books. I am not a petty man, but this was too delicious. Epikaharakakia, Aristotle called it joy upon evil, punishment justly served. This is because Gonson is a character who appeared in the second Antonia Hodgson's book. He is partly the reason why Thomas Hawkins, well actually he is the reason why Thomas Hawkins was sent to the gallows in that second Antonia Hodgson's book. And Gonson returns in this fourth book. Mischief, chaos, as you can only presume with Gonson, is going down. It is because of him that Kitty is in great peril. And I just love how excited Tom is that he's now in debt because of evil woman who has tricked him. I just loved it. And the final quote, page 182, we are introduced to a new character who, with Sam, is going to be a favourite of mine. Here I'm afraid I must pause and describe the beast for reasons that shall become clear. The Bible assures us that God created everything. Without wishing to blasphemy, I would contest that this was not one of his great works. Curiously, it resembled the sort of hound I used to draw as a boy before I understood the laws of proportion and scale. Its long legs did not match its solid meaty body, and it had borrowed its shaggy tail from another breed entirely. Its mud-brown coat, patched with black smears, gave the impression that it had just rolled in something filthy. To be fair, it often had. It had a rather sweet white flash on its chest, and its ears, I concede, were good, alert and pointed, but not much too big for its head. Even as a child, I would have scrubbed the whole thing out and tried again, but then I am not God, and his ways are mysterious. This is Thomas Hawkins describing a dog. Now, in this book, Kitty has been taken by her mother, which that was a bombshell. Her mother is getting Kitty accused of not being sane and put into asylum so that she can get a hold of her fortune. This book goes into slavery, it goes into asylums, it is fascinating. And as we all know, Antonia Hodgson has done her research. She always does great research before she writes. And ooh, dear, 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 Kitty is in some trouble. I have 40 pages left and I don't know if she's going to get out of it. I presume she is, but I do question it. She's in some shit right now. It ain't good. This is Thomas Hawkins trying to get into the asylum that they have found Kitty is in, and he meets a dog, and this dog becomes important and remains with them, and I just love that. Sam and this dog, special place in my heart. Alright, I'm going to put the book down now. I am going to finish that this afternoon, and then we'll go into my overall review of this book and my overall review of the Antonia Hodgson 4-book series. As I said, there could be another, I don't know. This one's not that old, but this TBR jar. I've got this jar from our friend Dave. It did have chilies in that he'd grown. It's been empty for a long time. So I am going to turn this into my TBR jar. What I'm planning to do is write up little prompts on here, which will help me choose the book, cut them out and pop them in this jar. I'm going to ask Matt, he can put prompts in there as he wishes also. If you guys have any prompts, please do comment down below and I'll add them to this jar. And then every quarter, so it'll be for the quarter of January, February, March, the first 3 months of 2025, I will do the first one of these. If you're not new to this channel, you'll know I'm reading the Discworld series in order, so there will always be a Terry Pratchett book in my TBR, which if I know which one I'm up to, I will say that when I give you guys the TBR from this jar. There will also always be a book club book that I will have to read. May or may not be known at the time that I do the TBR jar because it depends on book club is. So there's already 2 books I'm guaranteed I have to read at least every quarter. So I'm going to say I'm going to do 3 books from the TBR jar, so basically a book a month, because that gives me 5 books in that quarter. I generally do read 2 to 3 books a month depending on the size of the book, so that leaves me with space for if there's 2 book clubs manage to happen in that time, for as a mood reader if I take something else on. I don't want to overload myself. Now I know that's how many booktubers often do. I'm being realistic, so there'll always be a Pratchett, there'll always be a book club, This jar is going to pick 3 reads. Now, the prompts can be anything. So it could be pages in the book, it could be the color of the book, it could be a genre, it could be a author as well if they have lots of very standalone books. It could be to take on a series. I don't know. I'm just going to start filling this. You're not going to see them all obviously in this. I'm just going to start it. If you guys have some you'd like to add, to comment down below. I'm going to leave the jar open so Matt can put some in as well, and just as they come to me I'm going to write them down. But let's write some prompts for a quarterly TBR jar. I'm excited for this. I think it'll be fun. I have finished the Silver Collar by Antonia Hodgson. This is the 4th Thomas Hawkins book and I loved it. I have 3 more quotes from this book. One is page 276. I left Gonzalo with Fellblade. I'm sure I did not miss him, not at all. Gonzalo is the name that was given to the dog that I described in my last catch-up on this book. He loves that dog and he knows he does. Page 274. I scribbled some notes onto a scrap of paper. Fellblade fished out his spectacles and read over my shoulder, flapping his hand to bat away my pipe smoke. He hated tobacco, claimed it congested the lungs or some such nonsense. I love this because it's a historic fiction. So they used to think that tobacco was good for you. And obviously we now know that it's really not and that it does congest your lungs. So I just love how Fellblade, the apothecary, has said it's bad for you. And yeah, for someone who deals with poisons all day, every day as well, you'd think you'd believe him. And the final quote is page 278. He crumpled to his knees. What? I put a blade to his throat. I would prefer not to kill you, sir. He shared my preference, it transpired. I just love the way Antonia Hodgson writes Thomas Hawkins and the people around him as well. I love the sarky rawness. It's so sarcastic and just great. It's a proper just sink into, definitely holiday reads, as I've said before. This is the 4th and I don't believe she has any more out. Let me check. But there is no more Thomas Hawkins books. However, I have just seen she has a brand new series starting called the Eternal Path series, and the first book is called The Raven Scholar. So do comment down below if you would like me to read that series as it comes out. I think her writing is fantastic, so I think I will definitely add it to my wish list. Though right now I have a lot of books to read, so I should wait. But that may be the end of the Thomas Hawkins series. I would give this final installment, 5 stars. I loved it. I think if you remember A Death at Fountain's Abbey, it seemed slower. We had all these new characters in different settings. I think this one worked better because it was the same characters, it was the same setting, so you felt perfectly at home immediately compared to this one. But they could all be standalone. But I think this one, as I said, it just kept reminding me too much of the previous books. This one just didn't bother. It told you when it first mentioned it and that was it. That was all you were getting. Similar to this one, you got the brief sum up at the very start and that was it. If you don't know it by that point, you ain't getting to know it. Overall, in this vlog, we gave The Last Confession of Thomas Hawkins, which is book 2, 5 stars. We gave A Death at Fountain's Abbey 4 stars. As I said, it just seemed to repeat itself a lot, which it didn't seem necessary, but you can read it as a complete stand-alone. And then the 4th book, The Silver Collar, I gave 5 stars. It goes into slavery, it goes into the asylums, the unfairness, all of this. I loved it, and I still say that Sam is my favourite character, now joined by the dog, and I was satisfied with the end. People may think I'm cruel. I was very satisfied. By the end, by the way, I mean you must read the epilogue. I'm not satisfied by the end before the epilogue, but with the epilogue, very satisfied. But then that also half explains why Sam is my favourite character. I love Antonia Hodgson's work. As I said, she has a new book coming out that's not part of the Thomas Hawkins series. You know, I'm saying that I shouldn't get it. You all know I'm gonna get it. I don't know why I lied to myself. There's never not enough space on the bookshelves because I'll just make more shelves. So, that's gonna happen. But I love this series. If you haven't read the Thomas Hawkins series, the first book is Devil in the Marshalsea. That link is below me now to my review of that. I recommend this whole series. I'm addicted to it. I got my mum addicted to it. Matt loves this series as well. If you're looking for a super fast thriller, like crime, murder, mystery thriller read, perfect for holidays because you'll just devour it. It's so beautifully written, it's easy to read, the characters are so full, there's so much characterization in them. They're relatable because they're all grey. No one is purely good in this book. I would say there is pure evil in this book, but there's pure evil, but everyone else is great, and I absolutely adore that. There are obviously characters who are better than others in terms of their goodness, but I love this series. If you see Antonia Hodgson's work out there when you're book shopping, pick them up. Starting with The Devil in the Marshalsea, and then these 3 to follow. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my first ever reading vlog. Do comment down below if you like this format, if you'd like me to make more. There are some other book series that I have that I would love to read in this style, so do let me know. If you're new here, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to this channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!